All right, friends, gather around. Today, we aren't just looking at a car. We are looking at what happens when British engineers in the late 1950s decide that too much is actually just enough. We are talking about the 1959 Jaguar XK 150 SOTS. Now, if you aren't familiar with Jaguar's naming conventions from the 50s, OTS stands for Open Two-Seater. To you and me, that means Roadster. To your spouse, it means the car that is going to ruin our retirement fund and mess up my hair. But look at it, just look at it. This car has more curves than a mountain pass in the Alps and more chrome than a 1950s diner. It's the kind of car that makes you want to buy a silk scarf, put on some leather driving gloves, and speak with a mid-Atlantic accent, even if you're from Nebraska. Before we dive into the nuts and bolts, and with a 1950s Jaguar there are always loose nuts and bolts, let's talk history. The XK series started with the XK 120 back in 1948. It was the fastest production car in the world at the time. Then came the XK 140, which was a bit more refined, and finally we arrived at the XK 150 in 1957. By the time 1959 rolled around, Jaguar decided the 150 wasn't quite spicy enough. They needed something that would make the neighbors genuinely concerned for your safety. Enter the S. The S stands for special, but in reality it stands for seriously hold on to your hat. The XK 150 was the chunky younger brother of the series, while the XK 120 looked like it was carved out of a single bar of soap by a very talented artist. The XK 150 had put on a little bit of weight. It was wider, it had a one-piece wraparound windshield that looked like a goldfish bowl, and the hood line was straightened out. Jaguar's founder, Sir William Lyons, realized that people in the late 50s were getting a bit, wider. We needed more elbow room, we needed more comfort, we needed to be able to get into the car without needing a degree in gymnastics and a gallon of WD-40. But don't let the extra girth fool you. This isn't a lumbering barge. Under that massive swelling hood, or bonnet if we're being posh, lies the heart of a beast. This specific 1959 S model features the legendary 3.4-liter straight-six engine. But because it has that magical S badge, it's fitted with count them, three SU carburetors. Tuning three carburetors to work together is like trying to get three angry cats to sing Bohemian Rhapsody in perfect harmony. It requires a level of patience usually reserved for Buddhist monks, or people waiting for their dial-up internet to load in 1996. When they are synchronized, though, it's pure mechanical poetry. It produces 250 horsepower, which in 1959 was enough to practically tear the fabric of space-time. Now, let's talk about the driving experience. Driving an XK 150 SOTS is an exercise in sensory overload. First, there's the smell. It's a cocktail of high-octane gasoline, expensive leather, and just a hint of, is something burning? British cars of this era have a very specific smell profile. It smells like victory with a side of maintenance. Then you start the engine. It doesn't just turn on, it clears its throat and announces its presence to the entire zip code. It's a deep metallic growl that says, "I am a Jaguar and I would very much like to go fast now, please." One of the most revolutionary things about the XK 150 was the brakes. This was the first production car to come with four-wheel disc brakes as standard. Why? Because Jaguar had been winning Le Mans using disc brakes while everyone else was still using drum brakes, which were essentially two pieces of wet cardboard rubbing against a spinning metal plate. Before the XK 150, stopping a fast car was mostly a matter of faith and hoping there was a soft haystack nearby. With the 150S, you could actually stop in the same county where you applied the brakes. It was a miracle of modern science. Inside the cabin, it's a festival of wood and leather. It's like sitting inside a very fast library. The dashboard is centered, which was Jaguar's way of saying, we might export this to America, so let's make it easy to swap the steering wheel. It's cramped, Wes. If you're over 6 feet tall, your knees will be intimately acquainted with the steering wheel, and your head will be poking out above the windshield like a very stylish periscope. But you won't care. You'll be too busy looking at the S badge on the door and realizing that you are cooler than everyone else on the road. Of course, owning a 1959 Jaguar comes with certain character traits. For instance, the Lucas electrical system. Joseph Lucas, the man behind the electronics, was often called the Prince of Darkness. In a Jaguar, the headlights are more of a suggestion than a utility. If you plan to drive this at night, I suggest bringing a very strong flashlight and perhaps a flare gun. And then there's the oil. People say British cars don't leak oil, they're just marking their territory. If you park an XK150S on a pristine driveway and come back 10 minutes later to find a dry floor, you should be very worried because it means the car has completely run out of oil. But you don't buy an XK150S because it's practical, you buy it because it's an event. Every trip to the grocery store feels like the start of the Mille Miglia. You'll find yourself taking the long way home, looking for tunnels just so you can hear those 3 carburetors screaming. You'll become best friends with your local mechanic. In fact, you'll probably end up paying for his kid's college tuition. But when you're out on a winding country road, the top down, the wind in your hair, and that straight 6 engine singing its 250 horsepower song, none of that matters. The XK150S was the swan song of the XK series before the E-Type came along and broke the internet before the internet existed. It represents the pinnacle of 1950s British sports car design. It was the bridge between the raw, primitive speed of the 40s and the sophisticated grand touring of the 60s. Only about 900 of these S Roadsters were ever made, making them rarer than a politician who gives a straight answer. In conclusion, the 1959 Jaguar XK 150S OTS is a masterpiece of contradictions. It's heavy but fast. It's sophisticated but temperamental. It's incredibly expensive to maintain, but it makes you feel like $1,000,000. It's a car for people who believe that the journey is more important than the destination. Mostly because there's a 40% chance the car will decide the journey is over on the side of a highway. But if you have the means, the patience, and a very good relationship with a tow truck driver, there is nothing else on earth quite like it. It's not just a car, it's a Jaguar, and in the world of classic motoring, that's all that needs to be said. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go buy some more oil and a flat cap. See you on the road. Hopefully not on the shoulder.